This archival recording reflects the language and social attitudes of 1968. Some expressions may no longer align with current standards. It is shared for its historical significance and to help preserve and better understand the legacy of Bennett Cerf. We encourage you to listen with thoughtful consideration and respect for its place and cultural history.
Michael Canterbury reporting from the office of Bennett Cerf at Random House. Mr. Cerf, it's been a few years ago since we saw each other. I did an interview with you in Detroit, and you talked about your great days at Columbia. And out of that interview, I came to New York and sought to complete my education there. Now Columbia again is in the news, and I wondered what your opinions were on what's behind the student unrest.
Well, I really am not equipped to give you a considered opinion on this because I only know what I read in the New York Times. I haven't been up on the campus since this outbreak, so I am just a very deeply interested and worried onlooker. So I don't feel my opinion's worth anything because it would only be more or less a reflection of what I read in the New York Times.
The student atmosphere in general, when you went to Columbia, was it that the administration had all the decision-making power and that students were more interested in their own studies?
Well, when I went to the School of Journalism, wangled a degree out of Columbia at the same time, but in those days the School of Journalism was an undergraduate school, and that's where I went. Back there, I was in the class of 1920, for heaven's sake, and that's so long ago that there's a different world we're living in today. But in those days, these problems had never even came up. But as the years have gone by, students have certainly become more and more actively interested in the administration of the colleges. And it's a wise college president, in my opinion, who takes heed of that before disturbances break out. Now, whether or not that was done at Columbia, again, I can only tell you it's what I read in the paper. But when these things start, they're usually spontaneous or there's a good cause for them. And then, of course, outside elements come in and louse up the whole situation. And that's very deplorable, in my opinion. But if I wanted to point out that Columbia's had very bad luck in one respect. When Columbia moved up to Morningside Heights, somewhere around the turn of the century, from around right where we are now, around 48th Street and Madison Avenue, this was open country. These were open lots. And the first Columbia buildings went up. If you see pictures of them, there's a great expanse of land all around, farms actually. And at that time, who could dream that 50 or 60 years, 70 years later, this open countryside was going to be one of the most congested slum districts in the country? This is just miserable luck. Columbia finds itself in the middle of a very depressed area, pressing in on it at all sides. And this makes for terrible complications, as you can readily see.
What do you think of the idea of Columbia consulting the community before they go ahead with the plans with the park commissioner? Do you think the community should have been consulted?
Again, I don't feel fully qualified to answer. I think it's impertinent to express opinions when you're not well enough versed in every side of the situation. This is a very complicated situation. Now, the Morningside Park, which abuts the Columbia campus, is a very dangerous piece of territory these days. I would not feel qualified to venture a suggestion of what should be done about this.
You did say something that interested me quite a bit. You said that all you know is what you read in the New York Times about the situation. Is the New York Times the final piece? Are they the responsible element?
Well, we only have 3 newspapers in New York right now, unfortunately. The Times, the News, and the Post. And of the 3, I certainly consider the Times the most reliable. At least I depend on it much more than the other 2 put together.
What about media, radio and television?
Well, when they come along, it's the radio and television are things that I don't always hear. If I'm home, sometimes I'll put on the news. But again, you're getting a colored reaction of somebody who's been up there. And I think to really express a serious opinion on a question as important as this, a person should be personally acquainted with all the facts. I think one of the troubles in this country today is people shooting off their mouths with opinions about things they really don't know a damn thing about. They say there are only about 20 people who understand the Vietnam situation. Isn't it funny? You meet those people every 5 minutes.
then how can we, on an individual basis, how can we learn? How can we find out?
Well, we have to get involved. And how many things can a person get involved in his life? I think you have to keep your mind open, try to evaluate things from what you read, and really only get involved with as many things as you can handle personally. Now, I'm interested in book publishing. I try to get involved in anything to do with the world of publishing. For the rest, I have to be an onlooker, just like everybody else.
Okay, thank you very much.